introduction about Brother Mughees Shaukat. Mughees Shaukat is in Islamic advisor, Islamic banking advisors in Oman. He is a vice chairman of the education board in Bahrain. He is also specialist in fintech and digital banking. MIT US. He's the chairman of FGI Canada, pioneer head of Islamic finance in Oman as well. So without further ado, let me give the stage to Brother Mughees for sharing the session, sharing his knowledge. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Mughees. You can start, please.
Bismillah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much, my brother Abdullah, Prof. Datu Mustafa, the whole team of UCM. Assalamu alaikum to all of you, and it's good afternoon at your end. And all those who have joined from different time zones, good evening, good afternoon, good morning to all of you. And what a blessed occasion and what a blessed platform this is. And I'm so honored, so elated to be a part of this platform for a university that I have a heart-to-heart connection in so many ways. I remember, coming when I was in Malaysia. What a beautiful country that is, amazing people. May Allah bless Malaysia. And among my first visits to USIM was with Dr. Zamir Iqbal, who's now the Vice President of the Islamic Development, that then chair into Islamic finance at that time in USIM. And this is how, I got more interacted with UCM, and then how Allah, blossomed this relation with this fantastic university, and how beautiful this relation has become between me and UCM. And I was just discussing with Prof. Mustafa before the start of the session that whatever you need my assistance, whatever tawfiq Allah has given me, and you consider me worthy, I'll be at the front row to assist and support UCM, projecting it, promoting it, taking it to the next level, and internationalizing it in the best manner always that Allah has supplied me, inshallah ta'ala. And also, very many congratulations to the S.A.B.A. for coming up with this intellectual international discourses. I think these things are extremely important, these initiatives. People don't understand that, how important these discussions and these discourses are, because, not only by delivering in multiple of them, I've learned and I've gained more, but also being a part of you, I've also, have value added to myself and at an instant scale, which of course pre-Corona was hard to get. So a post and during Corona phase with such platforms, such initiatives, and UCM is also doing the same. I think this is extremely important initiative, and congratulations to UCM and the department that organized that. It's a very, very important topic, folks. And a topic that is going to not only shape the present, but also the future. And you're talking about not a far ahead future, it's talking about a very, very near future, if not it's already there. And I want to, be very crisp and very, basic in terms of making sure that you understand what is at our hand when we talk about fintech, when we talk about Islamic banking and finance, and when we talk about the issues and challenges. So it's a three-pronged topic that is going to deal with, areas of discussion that are, just very new to the international industry and academic fora. And this is why I want to make sure that I sort of chew it first, like a bird food, and try and make it so easy to understand from a base of it, so that people can use that base and then link it to whatever comes their way in a high-end manner. So what I want to do is, first of all, of course, before I start, our deepest sympathies with those who suffered from this COVID menace. Our profound appreciation for all those frontline health workers, government, armies, and all of those people who have been there in the front lines and still working day and night to shield us from this COVID menace. May Allah Ta'ala bless them, may Allah Ta'ala protect them, may Allah Ta'ala give them more tawfiq. and our prayers for those who have left us because of this COVID situation, who have suffered from this COVID situation, those who are suffering, may they, shifai kulli to all of them at an instant scale, inshallah ta'ala. So, and of course, to Malaysia, my prayers, my wishes, my family prayers and friends' wishes to all the Malaysians who are still in this phase of COVID situation. May Allah protect Malaysia, the Malaysian people, and make life come back to normal ASAP, inshallah. Now, of course, you have to understand that, this COVID situation has hit a economy that is a multipolar global economy. I don't want to discuss too much on the multipolar global economy, but I wanted to start from telling you multipolar global economy, because this has a lot of relevance to what we are going to discuss eventually. When we end this session, you will see how it comes back into the picture, and how this multipolar global economy is rather a boon than a bane to all the scenarios that we are going to discuss, and an opportunity for a fintech driven Islamic finance. Now, what do I mean basically by multipolar global economy? A multipolar global economy is the advancement of a unipolar global economy. A unipolar global economy means where one or two maximum centers, for example, USA was a driving force, the unipole of the whole global economic activity, and it was only single economy, a uni economy, that was driving, or the center of focus of the whole global economic activity and progress. Even, digression and all that, it works both ways. Now we are living in a world over the at least last 10 years, very profoundly we can say that we are now living in a world which is called a multipolar global. It's no more a unipolar, it's a multipolar global economy. In a sense that now we have, alongside USA, we have China, we have Russia, we have South Korea, we have other emerging countries. Malaysia is one of them, Indonesia is coming up, and all of these countries, they are now, distributing attention from US. So now you are living in a global economy where there are more than one driving forces. China, Russia, South Korea, still US is there, and other developed and developing emerging countries, including Malaysia. At least pre-corona, this was a very clear situation that now the world has transformed itself into a multipolar global economy. What this does is, and why I'm telling you this, is because of the following significance. The moment the global economy or any global scenario becomes multipolar, it means it gains itself into tightly knitted globalization. So the more multipolar the economy becomes, the more players that are driving now the global economy, the more globalized the economy becomes. It means that connections become very, very tight between country to country, between, the whole global economy. So it is a much, much more globalized, tightly connected world that we are living in a multipolar world that we are living in, or an economic world that we are living in. It means anything that happens in China, good or bad, simultaneously, it will not take time, because it's so tightly connected now the world is, it will simultaneously affect other parts of the world. Anything that happens in China and in America, good or bad, it will much more speedily, it will simultaneously affect the other parts of the world, which may have to do anything with it, or which may not have to do anything with it. So this is the, let's say, a magic of this multipolar global economy, that the world has become even more tightly globally connected. This is the hassle. This is the best part of this global economy. It is actually the bad side of it too, because if something bad happens, for example, this COVID situation that started, say, in one country, all of a sudden, before we knew it, the whole world was engulfed by it, and we're still fighting with this COVID situation. So while there are benefits of a multipolar global economy, while there are benefits of now extremely tightly knitted globalized economy, there are also the downside of it. And of course, the pandemic situation was the downside of it. But let alone the downside, we are now going to focus on how the boon part, the opportunities that this multipolar global economy brings in. This is what brings me to our food for talk today. Our food for talk basically will be based on the premise that if the world is so tightly globally connected, what are those ingredients, what are those elements that can materialize the opportunities that are on offer due to this multipolar, tightly globalized economy? There are many, by the way, but for the sake of today's discussion, we are going to focus our food for thought on the following two things: fintech and Islamic finance. What does these two can do to materialize the opportunity of a multipolar, intensely globalized economy, and use this and leverage this multipolarity to the maximum benefit, not only for itself, for fintech and Islamic finance, but for the whole global economy. This is what we need to talk about today at a very basic way, so that once you understand the basic fitra, once you understand the basic essence of things, once the thought process clarity is there in a hermeneutical manner, inshallah ta'ala, then you can easily connect the dots further. This is what I'm trying to portray or talk today over here. So in a scenario of a multipolar global, tightly knitted global economy, there's so many opportunities. There's so many ways we can materialize those opportunities. But right now, what fintech and Islamic finance, or fintech-driven Islamic finance, can do to materialize or leverage from this tightly knitted global multipolar economy. Now, before we do that, and before we understand and how to materialize those opportunities, we must understand what fintech is. We must understand what Islamic finance is, basically, and we must understand how fintech and Islamic finance have a connection. If we understand this, our basic sketch is ready, and that sketch can be transformed into a beautiful painting that can tell you that, wow, this is how the future looks like in a progressive way, using Islamic finance or a fintech-driven Islamic finance to offer sustainable solutions, smart solutions to the global world or the mass community in the financial and economic sector. So our food for thought would be discussing fintech disruption, discussing under the theme or ambit of fintech disruption, what is innovation versus renovation. Then we have to understand, while we are discussing fintech, there are different themes and shades of the whole technology spectrum. There are some few more deep tech and DeFi or decentralized finance is also there. But basically, there are three shades of this technology spectrum that is causing what we call as technology disruption. One is called tech fin, one is called fintech, and the other is big tech. We'll discuss that too. And then once we have understood the basic falsafa, the basic philosophy of this fintech jargon or the fintech ecosystem, then we'll try and understand, okay, what is Islamic finance and how does it relate to fintech? This is very, very important. And I call it fintech, AKA risk-sharing Islamic finance. Once we have built our case, then we'll see what are the new normal expectations, how the amalgamation of a fintech-driven Islamic finance can deliver itself as better as compared to the conventional solutions to new normal expectations. And then, of course, the issues and challenges / the unprecedented risks will be our ending situation for the future consumption. So basically, I want to straight away show you this slide, which is the Islamic finance landscape, and which started from Iran, Sudan, Malaysia, Pakistan, Indonesia, and look at this. All of a sudden, voila! All of a sudden, Islamic financial sector is now amassing the global economy, and it's almost reaching, alhamdulillah, $3 trillion in size, with over 600 Islamic financial institutions operating in 75 countries. So what it started in few countries, what started as a mere one-off experiment in Egypt back in the 60s, now has engulfed the world with over 600 Islamic financial institutions operating in 75 different countries. That's almost 40% of the world you're talking about. And 80% of the Islamic finance, 3 trillion almost, comes from the banking sector, 15 from the Sukuk, 4 from the investment funds and mutual funds, etc., and 1% from the Takaful. This is Islamic finance. Similar is the trajectory of fintech. So for example, if imagine if this was not an Islamic finance slide, it was a fintech slide. So what started from, let's say, I mean, was started from one country, spread to one, and Corona came in, pre-Corona, and there you go, voila. This is how fintech is expanding. This is exactly how fintech is disrupting the world in different shapes, scope, and sizes all over the world. As a matter of fact, I have some data that I want to tell you is that on average, there was a recent survey that was done, and I would refer to Path Solutions, which is an amazing technology entity serving Islamic fintech solutions to the Islamic banking in Oman and outside. And I want to quote the CEO, Mohammed Khatib, what a dear brother and friend he is, that on average, from 15 to 64% of the people already know about fintech in the financial sector. You're talking about mass awareness of fintech in the world as we speak right now. Almost 64% of the average people, average awareness is there on the fintech. This is much more awareness globally than what people are aware about Islamic finance, for example. 96% of the population that was surveyed, 96% knew at least of one technology solution. It can be through mobiles, it can be through computer gadgetry and whatnot. 96% of the people, globally speaking, are aware of at least one fintech solution, a technology-driven solution. One solution. That means that there is rapid awareness of fintech or rapid mental mass disruption, awareness disruption, not only technology disruption, but awareness disruption, much more faster than any financial disruption that the world has seen, let alone Islamic finance in this scale. Now, this is how the scenario is. So the trajectory of fintech, as a matter of fact, is very much similar to the trajectory of the way Islamic finance spread. So let's say Islamic finance, fintech, because the trajectory is also similar, the disruptive nature, I'm trying to, match the disruptive nature of both. Of course, both are different species, but the disruptive nature of both are same. This is how it started, and then straight away it disrupts itself. And before you know, it's everywhere. While Islamic finance is still, is under addressed in so many ways, and there are so many things, and there are a list of challenges that sort of dampen the growth of Islamic finance. But of course, fintech is different, so it's a little more rapid as compared to Islamic finance. Now, before we understand fintech has to be understood from its different themes, different shades that it carries. Now, this is a beautiful slide that I wanted to show you. And I mentioned in my food for talk slide that before we understand fintech, we have to understand what is innovation versus renovation. And to understand innovation versus renovation, we have to understand the different shades of technology or financial technology adoptions. People have to understand that sometimes what they are calling as innovation is actually renovation, but they don't understand the difference, so they keep on calling innovation. Now, understand the following, and I'm going to make it very easy for you, and I want to again refer to my beautiful brother, Mohammed Khatib on this, because we have a lot of synergy in our mental expression and mental thought process when it comes to technology adoptions. If something is called fintech, how do you know that this solution that has come in the financial sector is a fintech solution and not a tech fin solution? I haven't even talked about big tech. I'll come on big tech later. How do you know that this solution that is just entered the system is a fintech, not a tech fin solution, is an innovation, not a renovation? Understand it in the following way. Now, if that solution carries these characteristics, what are those characteristics? First of all, it has given birth to data creation. It has created or enabled you to create data, a data source or a data, which is also called big data in so many ways, in so many places. But in simple word, it gives any technology solution that, number one, gives birth to data. And you're not talking about normal data, a data that you can use strategically, a data that is only you have, not others have. So this is why it's called big data, a data that can be used strategically and gives you a strategic edge over the others. Any technology solution in finance that allows you the access or the creation to an exclusive big/strategic data. This is number one criteria. Number two criteria. It, at the same time, while it is giving you the birth or access to a new kind of strategic data where data itself becomes an asset for you, it's sort of, it also, you know, I mean, it demonetizes. It demonetizes as well any solution that not only gives you a strategic data creation, it creates demonetization as well. With it, it creates decentralization as well in its operations and services. It allows you to decentralize your services or decentralize the adoption of your services even from the customer. It, number four, allows you to democratize yourself. It allows for more democratization from democracy, democratization. Yani, it allows access to services without the middle party. It removes the middle party from in between. So there are four criteria that I've talked about. First thing first, any technology solution that give rise to simultaneously four things. Number one, it allows you to have now a big strategic data which you never had before, and this data is an asset for you. It demonetizes, or it allows some sort of demonetization happening. Crypto is an example, but I don't want to go to cryptocurrency as of now. It allows for decentralization, customer experience wise, or even financial institute experience wise, or operations wise. And it allows you democratization, yani it removes middle parties, yani it reduces the number of parties involved. So for example, it creates a direct connection between a deficit and a surplus unit and the middle party. It democratizes, it creates democracy in so many ways in its financial operationalization. So if all these four criteria are being met from that certain technology solution that you are bringing in your system, if these minimum four criteria are met, data creation, dematerialization, demonetization, decentralization, or democratization, and as a result, transaction costs of doing business is getting reduced and time is being saved. As a result of these, transaction costs of business is getting reduced and time is being saved to do the same business, you know, what you used to take a lot of time. Time saving as well as transaction cost reducing. These are those criteria that means that you have created a financial solution that has given you innovation. This is how you create innovation. If this is the case, if all of these criteria are met, transaction cost is being reduced significantly, people and the whole system is becoming smarter in that way that time is also being saved. This is called end-to-end innovation. End-to-end innovation happened just now. This is what fintech does. Fintech necessarily leads you to end-to-end innovation by following the criteria that I just expressed to you. Any technology solution that does not follow or have you create or obey or give you access to any of these criteria, any one is missing, that is not fintech. That is not end-to-end innovation. That is tech fin. That may lead you to renovation, not necessarily innovation. You understand that? A renovation, then you can fine tune it and later on convert it to innovation, but not straight innovation. You see what I mean? Any of the criteria that are not met, that sort of allows you to qualify it as a fintech solution. If any such criteria is being missed, that is tech fin. Tech fin. Fintech is finance using technology. Tech fin is technology entering into finance. You see, this is a difference. TechFin mostly renovation, FinTech mostly innovation because of those criteria that I've mentioned. I had to go to MIT and do a lot of work to reach this conclusion and explain you in a few minutes. So lucky you. So what I'm trying to now enters big tech. Big tech. What big tech does is it knows what FinTech and TechFin is. All it does is that it understands the situation and demands at hand, and it creates a supply either through a TechFin or a FinTech and deliver it to the end users. Why do you call it big tech then? It can use both FinTech and TechFin depending on the needs and demands out there. It can create a supply both on the terms on the lines of FinTech or TechFin and serve the end users. But why do you call it big tech? Big tech is a FinTech or a TechFin solution necessarily coming from those entities that are giant technology entities, like Amazon, like Google's, like Apple's, like Alibaba. Now they are called FANG. I don't know if you heard this terminology, FANG, F-A-N-G. It's not the fangs of Dracula. It is the fangs of Facebook, F for Facebook, N for Netflix, A for Amazon, N for Netflix, G for Google, FANG. These FANG companies, or any company that fits the criteria of this bigness, FANG, this is called big tech. Big is because the company or the technology provider is big, and tech is for technology. Now, this is where big tech comes in. Big techs are technology solutions from big companies, Samsung, Apple, Facebook, these streaming services, PayPal, Revolt, you name it, and we have it. So any solution, let alone they have used a FinTech adoption or a TechFin adoption given to the end users, is called big tech, a solution by big tech. Now, I'll explain the threat actually, let me just say it right now. The threat actually is not to the financial sector. The threat to financial sector, and it will be surprising to a lot of people, and this is where the clear understanding is so important. The threat to the financial system is not from FinTech or TechFin solutions. It is when big tech start offering solutions, technology-based solutions. Why? Because these big tech companies already have a massive global database. They already have big data, so they don't need to create or reinvent big data like other FinTech companies would. They already have big strategic data as an asset, a data that nobody else will have. Number two, that data is global data. So gigantic. You say big data, it's gigantic, ginormous data. Number three, the global acceptability of these big techs. Everybody knows about Samsung. Everybody knows about Apple. Everybody knows about Facebook. Everybody knows about Google, and they use them. And as a matter of fact, the most important thing, they trust them. So they don't even need to market themselves to gain trust of people. They don't even have to spend money on marketing, these big tech companies. So if a Google or an Apple or a Facebook brings up a technology or a financial solution that is driven by technology, people will straight away pick it. They'll be much more smarter, much more global, serving much better the multipolar global, tightly knitted global economic order. Acceptability is there, trust is there. Definitely their transaction costs are going to be much less than any other financial sector, be it government or non-government. And they can afford any sort of experimentation too. This is why the threat is from the big tech companies to the financial sector. FinTech and TechFins are not threat. They're, as a matter of fact, complementary. And this is why once you understand FinTech and TechFin as complementary to the financial sector, rather than what they are acknowledged as threats somehow, and you understand where the actual threat comes from, and that is the threat from big techs, then you have to understand, wow, this is a boon rather than a bane for the financial sector, and allowing the financial sector to align itself, to shape itself as subservient, as a best servant to materialize the opportunities that are on offer in a tightly knitted multipolar global economy that the world can thrive a lot from. To do so, you have to understand fintech from its ecosystem perspective. I'm a huge proponent and advocate of ecosystem. As a matter of fact, Prof and I are doing a major study in our thesis where we're actually studying the ecosystem of entrepreneurship in Oman. And alhamdulillah, we are progressing mighty well. Some startling findings are being produced. And, once the study comes out, I think it will be, a very prominent contribution to that discipline. Understanding any discipline from its ecosystem perspective is the way forward, the natural way forward. You miss this ecosystem understanding and approach and adoption, you always are firefighting. You always are firefighting. You always are misfiring. And you're always underperforming, undermining, and not even achieving objectives and creating more and more confusion and noise rather than real productivity or living up to your potentials. This is how important ecosystem is for any discipline. Same applies here in fintech, much more because technology has already, and will shape our futures and of our generation's futures. As a matter of fact, there was a survey I read in 2018, a Malaysian survey. I was traveling to a destination, and on my way, it was this Time magazine access I had, and then I had that. I looked at that survey where it said that 85% of Malaysian younger population is ready to pay extra cost if their banking comes on their palm top. See what I mean? So it means 85% of the Malaysian youth is ready to pay extra ringgits or dollars if they can get a smart bank, which is just on their palm top. So they don't have to move a muscle. Everything is on their palm top or mobile or etc. So people are ready to pay. A tech-savvy generation is even ready to invest a little more as long as everything becomes gadget-oriented. So you have to understand fintech from its ecosystem perspective. There is a financial service perspective. There is a digitization and technology perspective. And then at the end of it is the customer or consumer behavior perspective. This is very much in line to the criteria that I've expressed to you, which qualifies a fintech versus a tech fin, which qualifies an innovation versus a renovation. Now, I'm guessing, you guys have these debit or credit cards which have this Wi-Fi feature. That's not an innovation, that's a renovation. That was not, it was already something there, but you just, renovated it to give it a new feature. That was necessary. That was tech fin, that was not fintech. So you don't understand fintech as a discipline from an ecosystem perspective, you will miss a lot. You will actually miss, as a matter of fact, everything, and would not reap enough benefits from this whole, very game-changing perspective. Now, where does Islamic finance comes in? Now, understand something that in Islamic finance, of course, this is not an Islamic finance lecture, but in Islamic finance, we base Islamic finance on the following qanun or the law of Islamic finance that is driven from Ayah 275 of Al-Baqarah. The Ayah says, and this is the last part of the Ayah, which is a hukum, it says, I'm not going to talk about the riba side of it. I'm just going to make sure we focus on the al-bay' side of it and how Islamic finance is much well connected as compared to other conventional finance and why it complements and why I call it AKA Islamic finance, fintech. It's also called Islamic finance or more complementary to Islamic finance. Look at the essence of Islamic finance. The essence of Islamic finance is risk sharing. This is the main qanun of doing financial muamalat in Islamic economic and finance. It is true and based on risk sharing, end-to-end risk sharing going on. Now, people often understand, and I'm going to be very quick because this is not an Islamic finance session. People often understand Islamic finance and al-bay' as trade and commerce. And this is an ayah where, and I call it as risk sharing, and I have done a lot of work. You can easily Google a lot of my work and even YouTube some of this stuff where I've explained back and forth again and again in using Quranic text and a lot of other, arguments that why al-bay' is risk sharing and not trade or commerce as wrongly translated, or tijara. So I just want to be very quick. Look, I'm just giving you one ayah of Quran, which is Surah Al-Nur, ayah 37, where if these two words, tijara or al-bay' or trade or al-bay' meant the same thing, then look at this ayah, for example, which is using both the words in one ayah, not up and down, but side by side. You see this? You see this over here, tijara wal bay'. You see over here, these are two words used side by side. Now, this is Quran, and you're talking about a perfect language, fasihul baligh, error-free language, and either it is a grammatical mistake to use the two words which mean the same thing in the same ayah. Even if my kid does that, I will say it's a wrong sentence, because why you're using two words that means the same thing? Use either one of them or don't use two. Either it's a grammatical mistake, or because you're talking about Quran, both the words have to mean a different thing. Tijara is different, al-bay' is different. No, just fast forward over here. Al-bay' is the mother qanun, and there are so many ways to perform al-bay'. Tijara is one of the ways to perform al-bay'. Istismar is one of the ways to perform al-bay'. Ijara is one of the way to perform al-bay'. Takaful is one of the way to perform the qanun of risk sharing al-bay'. Sukuk is one of the way to perform the qanun of risk sharing al-bay'. So al-bay' / risk sharing is the mother qanun, and it has so many models. Depending on my expertise, my experience, my need, I can select the right model for me, and I can implement the qanun of and practice the qanun of risk sharing al-bay'. I can even practice it through waqf. I can even practice it through zakah, through infaq, through sadaqah. All they are models for me to practice the same qanun in different size and shape as per my need, as per my expertise. Because majority of the people, and the easiest model to implement al-bay' is tijara, because majority, as a matter of fact, over 90% of Islamic banking is based on tijara-based, trade-based murabahas and similar tawarruks and all of these tijara-based contracts or sale-based contracts. Majority of the more people follow this tijara model to practice al-bay' risk sharing. People sort of took it for granted that it means tijara directly means al-bay' because mostly it is being practiced. It's not. This is where the confusion comes in. So because of this risk sharing essence, one of the features, guys, this is so important, that has made fintech as disruptive, like the first slide I showed you, similar to the trajectory of Islamic finance. One of the features that has made fintech disruptive is not only technology. It's not technology that made fintech disruptive. What fintech applied technology on. This is where we're not talking about technology disruption, guys. We're talking about financial technology disruption. Please understand this. It is not technology disruption. It is what the technology did and used to cause financial disruption. This is the essence. This is the key to understand. When we looked at it, we realized that the reason why financial driven technology or fintech is causing disruption is not only because of technology. It is the model behind that on which the technology is being used that is causing disruption. That is causing its instant acceptability. That is where the smartness is being observed. That is where the transaction costs are being reduced. That is where big data is being created. That is where decentralization is happening. That is where democratization is happening. That is where so on and so forth. You see what I mean? Once you understand that, you will see that all those models that has made fintech, not technology, fintech as a disruption, be it crowdfunding, angel investing, P2P lending, venture capital, whatever name you call it, that at the base of it, all of them are classic risk sharing, mudaraba, musharaka, partnership, profit and loss sharing contracts. So it means the technology, when it is applied to risk sharing, mudaraba and musharaka contracts, name can be crowdfunding, angel investing, falan falan. It means it is this where the engine of disruption is being served. This is how technology or fintech is causing disruption. It's not technology alone. It is attaching itself to something and delivering it in a new, smarter way, and hence causing the disruption. So fintech is actually doing what Islamic finance was supposed to do more than 40 years ago. The disruption that Islamic finance was supposed to cause, which is still its original mandate, fintech is actually serving the modern version or the modern Islamic finance. Names can be different, but at the base, it is actually mudaraba and musharaka being served through technology. This is what fintech is, and this is what made fintech disruptive. It's not cryptocurrency that made fintech disruptive. It's not other modes in the ecosystem that made it disruptive. Financial technology disruption is because of these modes, and this is classic Islamic finance. As a result, this is why I call it fintech, also known as risk-sharing Islamic finance. This is why adopting fintech for an Islamic bank is easier or faster as compared to fintech or technology finance being adopted by conventional finance because of the model similarity. Fintech disruption is using the same mechanics of risk sharing, which is the mandate of Islamic finance from Al-Baqarah. The model of conventional finance is loan on interest model. Fintech's model is risk sharing. So it's even a even a child would understand that the complementation, the synergy of fintech with Islamic bank would be much more natural and faster as compared to its synergy with conventional finance. Now, conventional finance, because it has a loan on interest model, either it converts itself to risk sharing so that fintech becomes more accommodative to it and supportive and complementary like it is to Islamic banking, or it uses the same loan on interest contract and use technology to spread that contract. It means the same problems that the financial system is normally causing would be caused much more rapidly, much more disruptively. It will be spread much more disruptively through technology this time at the speed of light. You see what I mean? You see where the disconnect is and why fintech is more applicable and more synergistic. Why is it AKA Islamic finance and not conventional finance? Because the model similarity. However, to implement this, there are issues, challenges, and unprecedented risks. First and foremost is the challenge, of course, these are one-on-one challenges to Islamic finance that are pre-fintech or pre-whatever it was, from the day Islamic finance was rejuvenated. These are the challenges it is facing. Very one-on-one, I don't want to go into detail, it's not an Islamic finance session. The other risks that will happen when you talk about fintech is cyber security risk. Now, guys, this is amazing. This is a sort of risk that never existed before in the financial sector. This is a sort of risk that people are unaware of. This is a sort of risk people do not understand, hell, don't even have an education about. This is the dark side of technology. Technology comes with the package of cybersecurity. You cannot get away from it. This is the unprecedented risk. Technology will not only bring, as you're aware, while in the COVID situation, the most profit-making companies were technology companies, including Zoom. The size and the scale and the instantaneousness of cybercrime also increased in the last 2 years. Just Google it and see the data that while the technology companies, the top 5 or 4, gain billions and billions of dollars in just a matter of 18 or 15 months, the scale and scope of cybercrime and cybersecurity or financial cybercrime increased unprecedentedly, instantly. This is what is the danger or the risk that comes as a package to technology. This is the dark side of technology. When it comes to Islamic finance, you will not only be facing the normal cybersecurity risks or the one-on-one cybersecurity risks, you will also be, because you're a Sharia compliant, and this is a distinguishing feature between you and conventional banking, you are Sharia compliant and you obey rules of Sharia. You might as well also face new kind of Sharia compliance risks. New kind of Sharia compliance risk. how to Sharia govern a smart contract, how to Sharia govern a smart platform, how to Sharia govern a cyber security risk management, and so on and so forth. How to fulfill smartly maqasid al-Sharia, because this is new stuff even to Sharia itself in so many ways. So Sharia compliance have to be upgraded. All in all, fintech-driven Islamic finance is much more than just combining finance and technology. And there is a risk management from now onwards has to be revamped totally, and a cyber security falsafa of risk has to be inbuilt in the education sector from now onwards. Of course, there is another feature that is green swans of climate change. I'm just don't want to talk about. This is another favorite topic of mine. I'm building a lot more on this and creating a lot of awareness on this. Climate change risks will also be a feature of it. The mother of all risk, guys, is not cybersecurity or the risk or climate change and falan that I've just mentioned, or the 101 Islamic finance risk. For a fintech-driven Islamic finance, if it has to develop itself, is the human capital risk, which Islamic finance still faces, let alone fintech-driven Islam. Now you're talking about fintech-driven Islamic finance. You are finding it hard to manage a human capital risk or gap in Islamic finance. Now you're talking about a fintech-driven Islamic finance. What the system did was, over the last 40 years, it has built itself, wantedly or unwantedly, let's say unwantedly, on an extravagant breed of knowers of Islamic finance that has ran the system over the last 30, 40 years. Good or bad, we are not going to discuss that at all, assuming it's good and credit to them. But what we always missed is the presence of believers who have the ability to transform themselves into visionaries into Islamic finance. The same is the requirement of a human capital that is going to lead the implementation of fintech-driven Islamic finance that is going to operate in new normal world, a post-pandemic world that is going to be marred by climate change issues that are already on top of our hands. Man, oh man, I wish we can do a session, and I'll love to do a session on climate change and Islamic finance. I wish Abdullah and group can take a note of that, because that itself is a huge area where Islamic finance can also deliver in the best absorption capacity possible. What has happened is that we are right now living in a world of what I call as surrogate Islamic finance. And I did a beautiful article on this, and I'll send it to Prof and he can share it to the group. A surrogate Islamic finance. It means an Islamic finance that's not the actual Islamic finance, a surrogate or a duplicate or a certain version of an unactual Islamic finance. And of course, you can read this, and I'll pass these slides to you. What it has done is, this surrogacy of Islamic finance has given a lot of boost to knowers of Islam who just know about Islamic finance, but who don't necessarily are clear from the heart about it, and who have not spent too much time understanding the essence of it, the theoretical and practical underpinnings of it, and have not transformed themselves into believers in a visionary categories, but are just knowers of Islamic finance. This is where this is dangerous, and I call it the surrogate experts. Look at, for example, I produced this slide from a recent educational report that came from ISRA in Malaysia. Look at this, for example. This is what I mean. Look at what is the currently, this is what I call as the research focus of the Islamic finance sector. See the topics. They are very one-on-one topics. Even after 40 years, a majority of your research work is on Islamic banking, Islamic finance. You're talking about a fourth revolution times, and a fourth industrial revolution time that is fast transforming itself in the fifth revolution or industrial revolution phase. And your topics with regards to Islamic finance is pre-industrial revolution. So it's so pre-human in so many ways, if I can term it this way. None of the focus is on Jadid or the issues that we are talking about. None of them are talking about them. Because I have the blessing and the luck and tawfiq of Allah to not only involve myself but also read a lot of work that are done beautiful. They are beautiful works, by the way. But none of them is serving the actual purpose, the actual topics is what I'm saying. They are not alert to these topics. And if you even go into these topics, some of them are so old. Out of 886 Islamic banking papers that come out, I'm telling you 50 to 60% is talking about topics that were 20 years old topics. It's a fact. Capital market, Islamic fund, these are, they are good topics, folks, but they are not topics that transform people from knowers to believers and visionaries who can then connect the dots with climate change or fintech and new normals, etc., etc. Look at this, for example. I mean, I'm so worried in a way that because of the current trajectory, which is going to be also perhaps a bottleneck to implement the right sort of fintech-driven Islamic finance in the view of new normals and multipolar world, we have lost at least 2 generations of producing bright, modern thinking Sharia/scholars who could have, built themselves on the lines or a believer and visionary category, and who himself could have, talked about such topics and stuff like that. Look at the size. I mean, look at the number of banks or institutions or IFEs and the number of scholars that we have. This is another chart that I wanted to show you. So basically, what are the key takeaways? Guys, it's about time that we implement an Islamic finance version 2 that is necessarily predominantly driven by risk sharing with technology, social finance, financial inclusion, SDGs, and climate change in focus. This is what we need to do. From right now, we should prepare ourselves for a 2030 version 2 of Islamic finance while we are sitting in 2021 in view of new normal dynamics of a multipolar world. Time is ripe for a full-fledged former syllabi and programs dedicated on given themes: climate change, SDGs, technology, social finance. As a matter of fact, a full degree, a full plethora of training dedicated undergrad, postgrad programs have to be themed just on these important issues, and USIM could take the lead. Prof was telling me how, we could be of synergy in taking UCM ahead in different countries. We can even take UCM ahead in these themes too. UCM could be the industry or the educational sector leader designing dedicated syllabi and programs on these very important future shaping themes, present shaping themes. What we now know as UN SDGs, circular, blue or green economy, it has already been given to us more than 1400 years ago. We call it halal economy, simple as that. Or halal ecosystem, simple as that. As I mentioned, to me, we have lost 2 decades of young experts who are aligned to such models and challenges, attuned well with the underpinnings of core formations as put forward, for example, by Prof on moral economy and stuff like that, but even much more, the real topics I'm talking about. I'm glad to observe that in UCM, some of the thesis works that, are topics that I've seen seem to give a semblance that trajectory is being set right, at least in the UCM shores. We have to produce experts and students and younger population that is very well enshrined on history and future of Islamic finance in focus for the new age FIC of version 2 of Islamic finance that I've just mentioned, with cybersecurity, climate change, new kind of risk management, and with 2030 Islamic finance version 2 in focus. We have to straight away now build them with history of Islamic economic thought in their minds embedded already. Maqasid al-Sharia as a natija for this fintech, technology-driven, disruptive Islamic finance operating in new normal, climate change-driven SDGs world, multipolar world, has to be sort of not reframed, but reattuned from a planet, people, profit version of Maqasid Sharia than what currently is. And folks, this is what my submission is. And as I always say, it has to be a collective effort from end to end, from understanding, educating yourself and giving tarbiyah of yourself towards these themes versus implementation, industry and all that. It has to be a collective effort as one team with one ukhwa, and then how things will move forward and automatically barakah will also come. And this is what my submission is. If you have any questions or comments, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, Brother Mughees, for your input. I'd like to open for the floor for anyone who would like to answer question directly. Maybe you just raise your hand, or because the numbers is quite okay, so maybe you just open your mic direct and raise your question. Please give your name first and give the question. Anyone?
One thing I didn't tell you, Abdullah, that I'm very good at making people go to sleep. So anybody who was missing their sleeping patterns or
some questions. Okay, maybe Brother Mughees, let me just share with you the question, something that maybe you did not cover here, maybe because it's not the scope, about the literacy of the customers. Because I mean, for fintech and so on, Islamic fintech people normally now, even Islamic bank people, the Muslim, we are the Muslim majority, or the bankers Muslim, not to up to the point, not it doesn't cover most of the financial industry does not include, or the inclusion of the financial services is not covering all Muslims. So what's your comment? Because fintech for sure will help in doing the this kind of inclusion.
Yeah, so Abdullah, thank you very much for this question. This is a very important aspect, as a matter of fact. I mean, you rightly said I didn't intentionally cover it because it sort of was not in the theme of the discourse. But I tell you something, the financial literacy, or the Islamic financial fintech literacy, I tell you something, I mean, there's so many reasons why we have unbanked population. One of the reason is the lack of financial literacy among the masses. And I'm talking about the Muslim countries more, because majority of the unbanked population / that are not under financial inclusion of any sort is in the Muslim population. And there's so many reasons. Religious factors are there, remote area factors are there, no proper documentation factors are there. I mean, lack of money is another issue. Lack of interest is another issue. But one of the reason is the reason that you've just given, the financial literacy, knowing that it is there. To serve this, we have two things now. Number one, of course, we spread more awareness. But when you spread more awareness, we have to be very careful how we are making them aware. Yani how we are framing Islamic finance to them. This is where believers and visionaries are important. If you send a knower to financially literate them about Islamic banking and finance, he'll spread more confusion. This is where having believers and knowers to perform this task is the right ingredient to ensure that the financial literacy is addressed to. And hence more financial inclusion, more people, Muslim or non-Muslim, can be brought to under the umbrella of Islamic banking and finance. How you frame it to a Muslim and how you frame it to a non-Muslim, with the basic falsafa remaining the same, a believer and visionary, if he does it, you will see the results are different versus a knower is different. Number two, right now, because of this fintech adoptions and fintech coming in, financial literacy or no financial literacy, doing financial inclusion is much more easier and much more faster and much more smarter and much less transaction cost oriented. Why? Because everybody is more aware and literate about technology than finance. So if people are more literate about, even if you go into a very remote area or a village, everybody has smartphones. There are more phones on earth than more people. See what I mean? So technology is in access to more people than finance. If I want to bring more people to, let's say, Islamic finance, all I need to do is now use their technology understanding use amalgamate Islamic finance with it, and introduce fintech-driven Islamic finance. So be it literacy or no literacy, even if I am finding it extremely hard to create financial or Islamic financial literacy with the niyyah to bring people more toward Islamic banking, Muslims or non-Muslims. Now, that factor is no more that important for me because I know that everybody has access to technology. All I need to do is to use technology, amalgamate Islamic finance with it, and bring that fintech-driven Islamic financial solution to them, even though they are at a remote area or they may not even have interest, etc., etc. You see, so now it becomes easy for me to cater financial inclusion, increase my customer base or consumer behavior oriented or stimulated, as compared to what I wanted to do by just focusing on increasing financial literacy, because I don't have believers and visionaries who can do it much faster and much better than me. So I hope you got the picture and what I'm trying to say.
Thank you, Brother Moise. Okay, two announcements. First is there is in the chat box, there is a link for the attendance form. Please fill up. And the second one for all attendees attending here, wait for the photo session in the end of the session. Okay, so any questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I think Brother Mughees must go for his Jum'ah.
Oh, okay.
It's almost 12:15 in Oman. He's from Muscat, right? So he has to go to Jum'ah. So probably if there are any other questions from the other participants, I think Brother Mughees has already given his email address and everything. You can communicate with him and also contact us, inshallah. Thanks for the wonderful session, Mughees.
Anytime, Prof.
Very wonderful. Of course, there are a lot of questions, I think, from what you have discussed. Fintech versus TechFin. I think many people are confused with that also. And then innovation versus renovation. I think that's also very interesting. How we can go further in the future, because of so much of developments that are happening, especially in the fintech and disruptive economy or the digital economy itself. And with all these new advances like IoT and AI and so many things are coming through, probably the banks, the brick and mortar, I don't know how long they last. Maybe another 2-3 years, 5 years. And after that, what's going to happen to Islamic banking or even any other banking in the world? As you probably put it, it's going to be the fintech-driven Islamic finance, banking, and so on.
And this is why you have to understand it from an ecosystem perspective, because you can't avoid it.
Very
you can't
true.
avoid it.
Mm-hmm.
If your basic philosophies are not clear about this, you'll keep on misfiring.
True.
You'll keep on setting on a wrong trajectory, like what sort of we did in Islamic finance. So this is why I'm more conscious about. And remember, you're operating in a world that is also climate change ridden.
Mm.
People don't understand that this is going to transform the world and divert world's attention to in a different way altogether. So before we have a chance to enjoy the fruits of a fintech-driven financial system, we are already fighting climate change. So it's such a diversion.
Inshallah.
See what I mean?
So that's a challenge. The next challenge, right? I mean, yeah, it is really there, the climate change. Yeah, it's the biggest challenge now for us.
It is. And this is why, my suggestion is that perhaps QCM under you, Prof, and under the beautiful, department can do something and straight away be proactive in creating programs that are talking about cybersecurity, fintech, from a very ecosystem perspective. Yes. Let alone the 5th or 6th layer of it, where you don't even cover the first 5 layers. And then climate change. This is so important. I've requested, Abdullah, if we can do a climate change session. That's so important. And UCM has all the world to lead.
Inshallah. Make the du'as with us, right? Inshallah, we make du'a for everything. I think,
Dr.
Abdullah, if everybody can open up camera and things like that, we can, we can take a photo session. Mughees?
Yeah, you want me to open the camera?
Yeah,
sure.
Brother Zubair is here, please. And then Brother Ikmal, can you please take the photo?
Okay. So in count 1, 2, 3, smile. Again, 1, 2, 3. All right.
Okay, Jazakallah khair.
All the
Thank
best.
you. All right.
All the best. Juma Mubarak. Stay safe, stay blessed. Inshallah, see you again.
Inshallah. All the
Stay
best.
good.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thanks for
Prof.
everybody
Thank you.
for attending this
Assalamu alaikum.
session. And thanks for your support.
Anytime.
Thanks
Shukran
to Dr.
jazeelan.
Abdullah.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum, Prof. Assalamu
Alaikum
alaikum,
salam.
Brother Mughees.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.